The 2022-23 season has been a complete shambles for Chelsea so far, and it looks likely to continue that way for the remainder of the season. The Blues find themselves sitting in the bottom half of the table, and new owner Todd Boehly's wallet is considerably lighter than it was this time last year. Since taking ownership of the club, Boehly has amassed a whopping spend totalling £1 billion, and yet the results have been so disastrous that it's hard not to focus the blame on what looks to be a truly woeful transfer strategy. Chelsea and Todd Boehly's crazy spending has left the footballing world shocked. Let's take a look at some of the reasons why. Todd Boehly made it clear from the get-go that he wasn't afraid to open his wallet, but anyone who follows the Premier League will tell you that spending doesn't always guarantee success. Let's dive into the top 5 most expensive transfers that Chelsea have made during this wild spending spree. Number 5. Kalidou Koulibaly. Chelsea signed Kalidou Koulibaly from Napoli in the summer transfer window for £33 million. The centre-half has managed a total of 31 appearances so far, but rumours are already beginning to surface that the player is keen to move away from Stamford Bridge in the summer. With only 33 goals conceded this season, it's the opposite end of the field that's truly been the problem for Chelsea, and the next player on the list has certainly played a part in their shocking performance in front of goal. Number 4. Raheem Sterling. Raheem Sterling made the switch from Manchester to London in the summer for a fee of £47.5 million after completing his 7th season at the Etihad. On paper, Sterling's arrival seemed like a decent move for Chelsea, but it left fans questioning why the club was yet to sign an out-and-out striker. Since joining the Blues, Sterling has managed only 4 goals and 2 assists in 22 matches. A truly awful return for a forward that had more goal involvements in any other player under Pep Guardiola at Manchester City. What seemed like good business at first has evidently been a huge flop for Chelsea, but their spending spree was only getting started when Sterling walked through the door, and it was about to get a whole lot worse. Number 3. Marc Cucurella. Brighton are the masters of negotiating huge fees for their players, but apparently Todd Boehly didn't get the memo. Eyebrows were raised when Chelsea agreed a deal with Brighton worth £63 million for Marc Cucurella, with many fans left wondering why the club was spending so big on a position that wasn't in need of such significant investment. Cucurella has been the subject of constant scrutiny since joining the club, and his calamitous performance against Real Madrid in the Champions League really highlighted how careless Chelsea's spending has been this campaign. Was the criticism fired towards Boehly enough to make the owner think twice about his excessive spending? Absolutely not. As the summer progressed, the club seemed insistent on continuing their spree of reckless transfers, and the next player on our list represented the peak of Chelsea's crazy summer spending. Number 2. Wesley Fofana. After a long and persistent chase that saw 3 bids knocked out, Chelsea eventually secured the services of Wesley Fofana from Leicester City for an enormous fee of £70 million. The centre-back commanded an eye-watering sum for a player that only had 81 senior appearances to his name. Despite the obvious potential and ability posed by Fofana, the signing represents yet another failure in Chelsea's transfer strategy. Their league rivals have exercised caution in the transfer market, and despite the mass spending power of the Big Six, it's Chelsea that continue to throw enormous fees at arguably the wrong players. Somehow, Chelsea's aimless spending strategy followed them into the January window, with arguably the craziest transfer move of them all. Number 1. Enzo Fernandez. Yep, you guessed it, it's the jaw-dropping £110 million spent on Enzo Fernandez in the winter transfer window. The 22-year-old signed for Benfica for only £10 million the previous summer, and yet the following season his transfer to Chelsea made him the most expensive Premier League signing of all time. Chelsea were immediately punished for their frivolous spending when Fernandez received a straight red card on his debut, a truly damning indication of how successful Todd Boehly's transfer strategy has been since the start of his tenure. So how have Chelsea managed to spend all this money without facing punishment? Well, this is where their spending really starts to take a crazy turn. They've done something that's almost unheard of in football. Chelsea are all too familiar with transfer bans, and they made sure to avoid one this time around. Many of their new signings have been tied down to long-term contracts that are pretty much unheard of at other clubs. This has given them the freedom to spread the cost of the players over a longer term. A clever strategy in the short term with worrying implications for the future. Enzo Fernandez, as an example, penned an 8-year contract in January, and while it might help Chelsea to avoid a run-in with the FA, they'll find it extremely challenging to sell him if he turns out to be a flop. 8 years is a frightening commitment to a player that shows just how careless Chelsea have been in the transfer market this season. The footballing world was left shocked, with pundits, former pros and journalists all keen to have a pop at Chelsea and Boehly's astounding spree of spending. Alan Shearer labelled Chelsea's spending spree as stupid and ridiculous on Match of the Day, while Gary Neville has called Todd Boehly's mind-blowing transfer strategy staggering. Even Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola have had their say, with neither being able to understand how Chelsea were able to spend so frivolously. When the manager of Manchester City, one of the league's biggest spenders, is struggling to understand your spending, that might be a warning sign that things are getting out of hand.